Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our Art Center for Contemporary Art for our closing reception of Eric Franklin's Granite. My name is Sarah Labar, I'm the Executive Director here. We are so thrilled to have had Eric's work. I have a little tear in my eye that it's coming down so soon. And I hope you talk a little bit about what your plans are for how to take it down. Because I've heard that might be kind of an interesting thing, which we will also record and put on our website. Eric Franklin was first introduced to working with glass and neon while studying sculpture at Arizona State University. This immediately led him to seek out more in-depth instruction in glass through the chemistry department, makes sense, scientific glass blowing facility. After graduating from ASU in 2000 and moving to Portland, Oregon in 2001, Franklin attended the Pilchuck Glass School as a student in 2002 and as a teaching assistant in 2004 to further enhance his glass blowing skills. Pilchuck is in Seattle?
Yeah,
just outside of Seattle. He lived and worked in Portland, Oregon in various positions, such as exhibition designer at the Museum of Contemporary Craft, materials lab coordinator at Portland State University, and technical director of studio art at Reed College until 2016 when he relocated to Loveland, Colorado, where he currently serves as the exhibition preparator at the Loveland Museum and maintains a studio at his home. Franklin's artwork, seen behind me, is included in numerous collections, including the Renwick Collection at the Smithsonian American Art Museum and the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington. His work has been featured in a range of media such as the Huffington Post, NPR, Instagram, BuzzFeed, New Glass Review, and Colossal.com. The books Mammoth Book of Skulls and Lust for Light, as well as the television networks Discovery and OPB. He won first prize in Center on Contemporary Art's 2008 annual in Seattle, Washington. Franklin was also a presenter at the 2008 Glass Art Society Conference in Portland, Oregon, and the 2015 International Flameworking Conference in Salem, New Jersey. So, very, very big welcome. Thank you so much for Eric for showing for the last month and a half. Like I said, we've just been so blessed to have your pieces here. And without further ado, we'd love to hear about and talk about your work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah, for the intro and for inviting me to do share a beer. I think if we were to talk about like where this work came from, I made a large piece similar to this one when I lived in Oregon. One of my friends asked me to do a show at the university in this enormous gallery. It's like brutalist architecture, concrete, huge windows. At the time, I was pretty much exclusively working in neon, so I knew the space, and I knew it was just flooded with daylight. And it was about a month before the show would open. So a lot of my neon pieces, well, at first they don't look good in daylight, and they take a lot of time to make. So I spent a couple of days thinking of something, and from my past history in rock climbing, I was really interested in the structure of basalt and how it breaks into hexagonal columns. So I did a few sketches and thought I'd try this solid rod technique. So in that space, I built this freestanding piece that was 30 feet long and 10 or 11 feet tall, and just kind of worked my way through the space, these honeycomb structures and columns. So I also had this thing kind of in my head that I wanted to it should be taller than me, it should be, about this long, and I wanted it to be all one piece of glass. So just make this massive piece, because it would be completely different than anything that I'd done before. So that was sort of the jumping off when I was been looking for a way to sort of revisit that work. I think I made that piece in 2009. Yeah, probably 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. So since we moved to Colorado 4 years ago, I've been looking at, still interested in the rocks, obviously, looking around at granite, trying to figure out what the pattern was. I look at it close, different places where it's cut by glaciers, where it's just wind blown and eroded. And I could never really see like what the pattern was, because there is and there isn't. Granite kind of does what it wants to do. But there was one day up in Glacier Gorge, I saw this cliff band, which this piece is from, where it just sort of like made sense. And I saw the trapezoids and parallelograms. So that kind of led me to, first, I guess this was sort of the first drawing of this group of work. But then to take those parallelograms and trapezoids, make those into a crystalline structure that would kind of describe these different pieces. So with the thing with the hexagon piece I made, those are generally really regular. They're really obvious pattern. Whereas granite just kind of does it every now and then. So I was able to just do it every now and then out here. And sometimes there's squares, sometimes there's triangles, with a lot more irregularity, but there is sort of a basic sort of thought process and certain shapes that are in there. When I started making this piece, I just sort of had it in my head that I'd start in the corner and off the wall, and I kind of thought it would like come out onto the floor and be out here. But as I was making it, I really realized that I wanted to see it cantilever off the wall and really try to make it float. So different than the piece I made before. So I decided not to go to the floor. And I kind of cut it off where I felt comfortable with the structure being able to stay up for 2 months. So I'm actually very excited to take this piece down because I want to pull on it a little and just see, like, well, maybe I could have gone twice as far. I don't really know. So looking forward to sort of discovering that. But sort of in the process of like looking at the granite and sort of trying to figure out the pattern, it felt very sort of metaphoric for what's going on in the world right now. So the subject matter, I suppose, is granite, but the content is really just like looking at the world, trying to figure out how things have changed and how we're going to move forward. So I guess part of the mirror finish on these is that sort of reflection, looking back and maybe not recognizing what you see with the curved surfaces. Does anybody have a question?
How do you achieve the reflective finish on these pieces?
How did I make it?
The reflective quality, how do you achieve it? Yeah.
Oh, okay, so these are made out of clear glass, but it's a tube instead of, these are solid rods. So the tube, these are blown hollow, and then there's this solution, similar to how any mirror is made, but it's a liquid solution that slosh around it. It plates the inside with silver.
When are you taking it down?
I don't know for sure yet. I actually haven't. Sometime next week. Like, I think I need to head down.
I'm a photographer. And
Yeah, gonna bring your camera.
Well, before you take it, I've been telling people that I thought you'd have to destroy it to take it down.
Yeah, I mean maybe destroy is not quite the right word, but because I can use this glass again, so I'll kind of semi-carefully cut it apart.
Well, I'd like permission to light it and shoot it.
Oh,
And then I'll give you any copies of anything that turns.
Oh, that'd be great.
If that's okay with everybody.
yeah, we can get together maybe.
I was gonna, next time I saw you, I was gonna ask anyway.
Yeah.
But we're right here.
No, that'd be great.
I'm gonna, I've got some ideas. It's gonna be different than what's right now.
Cool.
So, Okay, good.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious that when you get ready to take it down, how to video.
Do you start with a sketch that resembles this final product, or is it really built in situ?
It is very much built in situ. So any of the sort of sketch that would be the idea of the piece has more to do with individual structure and kind of the rules that I set up around how to make decisions on where pieces go. Yeah, and then I hoped that it would not turn out how I originally expected. You know, there's a point in a piece where you're like, no, it's got to go this way. You know, 'cause that's what the fun part of it. So, and it did. So.
So what are those rules you said?
Well, yeah, I guess it had to do with trying to come up with four-sided, irregular planes. And that was, I mean, really, that's the big rule. And then every now and then throw in a triangle or a pentagon or a, there's probably one hexagon. I can't really help myself with those. There should have one in there somewhere. Yeah, and then, you know, I guess making sure that, you know, sizes are different and just some things like that. Or they're the same. You know, there's a couple places where I really did try to add a little rhythm, but then it immediately disrupted, so.
You consider this a form of parametric design for that reason?
You know, I haven't really thought about it that way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, it's kind of like a, you know, you get everything set up, you've got the space, you've got the tools, and then it's just this kind of intuitive process to go through.
So the whole thing's not coming down and going into your house then?
If the door was bigger.
I'd like to see the top you put it on.
Yeah. But the previous one that I made, you know, that was like 30 feet long, my way of testing that one, since it was all standing on the floor, was to stand on one end and shake it. So I started shaking it, and I was moving one side of it 3 or 4 feet each direction. And then eventually it snaked a wave, and the other end was moving that much too. And like 3 rods popped off. And like didn't break it. So glass is kind of an amazing material that way. It's really strong and really flexible. But if it gets bent the wrong way, it breaks really easy. So it has its rules that you have to play by. But you know, as I network these things together, you know, they do, it's quite a bit of strength. Just because there's
With the floating cantilever design, I mean, you talked about building it out of the corner, but did you start with some hooks in the wall and or like?
No, there wasn't.
How did you?
I guess I didn't use
support it?
any support that was then removed. I started with these 2 pieces, one on each side in the corner, and attached those together. And, you know, it was still kind of flopping around, and then I just kind of went back and forth, kind of continually tying it together. Kind of came across this way, and I mean, yeah, it wasn't like I just started on the left and like I really just went back and forth, and then came to the bottom and pulled it across. Maybe there was one little part at the end where I was actually kind of working left to right, just to kind of finish the front. But,
So the pieces that are in the wall don't have a knob on them, or?
they do have a hook. So I bent, you know, these pieces are bent at various arbitrary angles, just to give it a little bit of, you know, downward support. And then most of the bottom ones, I drilled the hole at an angle that kind of mimics how they're coming out of the wall. So hopefully they're kind of pushing up a little bit.
So about how long did it take you to create them?
I think about 25 hours, which is probably faster than, you know, that piece probably took, 30 or 40 or so. So to me, that's like light speed. For making, I spent a year making one piece, so you know, to make something in 25 hours over 5 sessions or so seems pretty quick. Which is also another thing I really like about doing this, because my other work is so tedious and time consuming.
So are you still working with neon, and this is a different kind of series?
Yeah, it's just a different thing. I mix it up every now and then. I have a few drawings for neon pieces that are more like these wall pieces.
So is there anything that stimulates you in terms of the different shapes of going from trapezoid to triangle?
Yeah, I don't. It just seems to be it's a, like I said, a real intuitive thing. It's just like, well, this needs to be this next. And you just kind of trust that and go with it.
Can we talk a little bit about the images that you did that are at the entrance of the?
Yeah, so those are screen prints of a photograph I took up on Long's Peak earlier this summer that show a little bit of, you know, both, there's like a kind of a large area of unfractured and a really fractured area, and some of the angles I was working on with this. And there's a few parallelograms and trapezoids in there as well. So that was just kind of another way to kind of translate and think about those images and structures, and kind of a nice way, I thought, too, to kind of introduce the show and give people a kind of a jumping off point, I guess.
Yeah, I like the contrast of it as well, you know, going from that kind of a medium into.
Yeah. Because there's a photo much like that, you know, that I took, and then, you know, just, you know, with a pencil, look at some of the fractures in this photo, that drawing, and this one here.
What's this one based off of?
It's similar. It was
Okay.
it was from the same band that this one was from. It's just another little sort of an ending piece of it.
I think it's interesting how much movement you were able to achieve with this piece on the wall, considering that your inspiration was so stagnant, was, you know, granite, rock, you know, something so hard. Yet you've got this web-like, spider-like, you know, a movement that's coming out of the walls. It feels like it's actually being stretched across the wall. I find that really, really interesting. I'm gonna organically glue on it, so
It's kind of new. Do you ever work with color drops? Like,
Yeah, I haven't. You know, it's funny. Or maybe it's, you know, like there's not any color in this show. Like 99% of my studio practice is working without color, because it's all my neon pieces are made in clear glass, and then the color comes right at the end. And like there's a bit of control, like there is and there isn't. Like I can kind of know by what gas I'm going to put in there, what color it's going to be, but generally the color happens based on just what the gases want to do and where the, you know, reds and blues might want to land. So sometimes I feel like I don't have a good color sense because I always work in colorless material. Even though, you know, if you look through my website, it's like bright, crazy color.
Shadows are definitely a part of this, though. I mean,
Yeah, and it's my neon works, shadow doesn't really come into play. Because there's not, I never use external light when I display them so much. And neon is a real, you know, these are very directional lights, but neon kind of sprays in every direction. So it's a really non-directional light. It doesn't necessarily cast shadows. So it is nice to put lights in something and have that element of it as well.
What's next for you?
What's next? I'm gonna continue kind of hacking away at this body work. I was supposed to do a show at the museum earlier this year, but we all know what happened there. They were closed for the duration of my show, so we never hung it. So we're gonna try to do it next year, and that'll be kind of selected works, I guess, from neon works from the past. Maybe about the past 10 years, various pieces, and a couple of new pieces as well.
Which museum?
Loveland Museum? Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, thank you so much for being here.